Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundations. I'm the Grizzlies TV voice, Pete Pranica, and I'm thrilled to once again be the MC for this very special event. I want to tell everybody that today's event is also being telecast live on Fox Sports Southeast, and we want to welcome all the viewers watching at home on this holiday. Today, as we have every January for the past 15 seasons, we pay tribute to athletes who have made significant contributions to both civil and to human rights. Today's honorees have laid the foundation for future leaders through their careers in sports by embodying the spirit and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. We are very proud to partner with the National Civil Rights Museum to host not only today's symposium, but an entire series of events this weekend that we hope will provide a platform of critical dialogue that honors Dr. King's legacy and continues his life work that remains undone today. Dr. King once said, "We must act in such a way as to make possible a coming together of white people and colored people on the basis of a real harmony of interest and understanding. We must seek an integration based on mutual respect." It is our fervent hope that the events of this weekend will fulfill that spirit. And with that, I'd like to introduce the President of Business Operations for the Grizzlies and FedExForum, Jason Wexler.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to those joining us here today in the Built Ford Tough practice facility at FedExForum and to those who are watching on Fox Sports Southeast. Before we begin today, I'd like to thank all the partners who helped make today's events possible. Our co-host, the National Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Motel and its president, Terri Freeman. Our symposium sponsor, the Hyde Family Foundations. Our game title sponsor, Ford and your Mid-South Ford dealers. And our associate sponsors, Coors Light, Ashley Home Store, and FedEx. On behalf of Robert Perry and the Grizzlies organization, I would also like to thank and welcome NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, NBA Players Association Executive Director Michelle Roberts, and Jeannie Buss and the Los Angeles Lakers for being here and for their support of this weekend in the National Civil Rights Museum. Today's game versus the Los Angeles Lakers tips off at 4:30, but we encourage fans to get to their seats early so they can enjoy the presentation of the National Civil Rights Museum Sports Legacy Award to this year's honorees, followed by the national anthem being sung by the multi-talented R&B artist and Maroon 5 keyboardist P.J. Morton. And at halftime, fans will have an opportunity to enjoy a performance from Memphis soul singer and songwriting legend Don Bryant featuring the Bo Keys. We are also pleased to debut today the MLK50 City Edition uniform to be worn by our Memphis Grizzlies, which was designed in collaboration with Nike and the National Civil Rights Museum. The uniform's story, stark use of color, iconic type, and design is intended to shine a national light on the 1968 Memphis sanitation workers' strike, from which the historic "I am a man" phrase and images emerged, and the events that led up to the assassination of Dr. King. The uniform is also intended to bring awareness to and support for the National Civil Rights Museum's drive to deepen our understanding of the ongoing movement for social and economic justice that Dr. King defined in life and in death. The annual tradition of celebrating Dr. King's legacy is a point of pride for our entire organization. The Grizzlies are pleased and thankful on this day every year to be able to ignite a conversation that both reflects on where we have come and brings to the fore how much remains to be accomplished. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jason. It's been my privilege to cover the NBA now for 25 years, and in that time, the NBA has grown and evolved into the most progressive sports league in the world. The NBA values inclusion and diversity. It champions social justice and community investment by its players and its teams, not only in their home markets, but literally around the world. We are especially privileged today to have with us the Commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver.
Thank you very much, Pete, and it's an honor to be here today representing the league. First of all, let me thank the Grizzlies organization, Robert Perry, Jason Wexler, Mike Conley, who I spent time with yesterday. I had the chance to speak with Kevin Lloyd, NBA royalty, son of Earl Lloyd, and it's a very special time for the league to be here in Memphis. Let me begin by saying I had the opportunity to tour once again the National Civil Rights Museum yesterday, and here we are on the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's death, and I'd say there's no place in the world I'd rather be here in this city today, honoring his legacy with all of you. When Martin Luther King's holiday was first established, the league had to make a decision, and some people at the time recommended that we actually not play today to honor Dr. King's legacy. But ultimately, in discussions with our players, we decided that the appropriate way to celebrate his life was for our players to play today. We have a full slate of games around the league. And in discussions with our Players Association, with our players, it's a special meaning. It's a really special time for them to play today and to engage in programs like this throughout the entire league. So it's not just happening in Memphis, but in cities throughout the league. We have special halftime celebrations, pregame celebrations, all focused on the legacy of Dr. King. Speaking of Earl Lloyd, of course, Earl Lloyd was the first African-American player to ever play in an NBA basketball game. And I had the chance to know Earl earlier in my career, and he often spoke to our rookies at a symposium that we have every year. And I remember when young players would say to Earl, "We owe you, Earl," he would say back to them, "You owe me nothing. The people you owe are the folks who are going to come behind you." And I'd say we're so lucky today, speaking of four players who came behind Earl Lloyd. Today, the players that are going to be honored, Swin Cash, Penny Hardaway, Sam Perkins, and James Worthy, are incredibly worthy. These are four players who remain engaged with the league day in and day out. They're four players that I've gotten to know very well over the years, and I can't think of four better examples of people who lived the legacy of Dr. King, who spend their time giving back to their communities and teaching those who come behind them how important it is to adhere to the values of this league and to pay honor to Dr. King. So once again, thank you all for including the league today. Thank you for having me here, and I enjoy watching the game as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And of course, an integral partner and collaborator in this entire celebration is the National Civil Rights Museum. We want to have a very special welcome for its president, Mrs. Terri Lee Freeman.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Pete, for that introduction. The National Civil Rights Museum continues to be proud to host this very special award along with the Grizzlies and the NBA. We are really grateful for our partnership with the Grizzlies that continues to grow. We had a wonderful symposium last night, and we're certain that we will continue to work with them as the months go by. This is the 50th anniversary of the tragic event that occurred at the Lorraine Motel in 1968. But we're not going to focus on the tragedy. We're going to focus on the legacy. And we invite all of you to join with us in April to actually remember Dr. King and examine his legacy. I want to also thank the Grizzlies, the Lakers, the NBA, and the NBA Players Association for the very generous contribution that they have made to the museum in honor of MLK50. And I would like to just congratulate the honorees, Swin Cash, Penny Hardaway, James Worthy, and Sam Perkins. Congratulations on this honor for all your hard work on the court and off. Again, thank you, and come see us at the National Civil Rights Museum.
Thank you so much, Terri. Now for our viewers on Fox Sports Southeast, we're going to step aside for a few moments, and when we return, we'll begin our symposium conversation here at the Built Ford Tough practice facility. Family Foundations. It is now my great honor to introduce our Sports Legacy Award honorees. Our first honoree was selected first overall by the Lakers in 1982, the MVP of the 1988 NBA Finals. He won 3 NBA championships with the Lakers. After a 12-year career in LA, he was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2003. He has been just as impactful off the court as the founder and CEO of Worthy Enterprises, contributing to such nonprofit organizations as the YMCA, NBA Cares, Big Brothers of America, and Boys and Girls Clubs of America. He founded the James Worthy Foundation with a mission of helping at-risk youth, military veterans, and their communities build earned pathways to success. The organization hosts programs throughout North Carolina to improve the quality of life of various groups. He also opened the James Worthy Empowerment Center in 2011. And in Los Angeles, he runs basketball clinics for kids hosted by the Lakers and the Junior NBA. He also volunteers on behalf of Shoes That Fit, an organization that collects and distributes athletic shoes to children in need, as well as Rebuilding Together, a group that renovates houses in low-income areas. Please welcome Big Game James, James Worthy. The fourth overall pick by the Dallas Mavericks in 1984, our next honoree made it to the NBA Finals with three different teams, the Lakers, the Sonics, and the Pacers, during his 17-year NBA career. He was also a national champion with the North Carolina Tar Heels and an Olympic gold medalist for Team USA in 1984. Since his retirement, he has remained as dedicated to community service as he was to basketball. He's volunteered for and participated in events for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, the Big Brothers Program, Carolina for Kibera, pediatric AIDS charities in Seattle, and Habitat for Humanity. He has represented the NBA at countless NBA Cares events, as well as community service events and clinics on Basketball Without Borders trips. He's a spokesman for the Nothing But Nets program that delivers quality mosquito netting to Africans to reduce the spread of malaria. As a member of the Sports Envoy for the U.S. State Department, he promotes peace through athletics and has traveled to South Sudan and to the London Olympics to lead basketball clinics and participate in service projects. He is currently a board member for the NBA Retired Players Association and an ambassador for the Special Olympics. Please welcome Big Smooth, Sam Perkins.
Big Smooth.
Our next honoree was selected second overall in the 2002 WNBA draft and is one of the most decorated athletes of her generation. 3 WNBA championships, 2 NCAA championships, and 2 Olympic gold medals. She is also a 5-time WNBA All-Star and a 2-time All-Star Game MVP. She retired in 2016 after 15 seasons in the WNBA. She has also achieved excellence off the court with Cash Enterprises to support her philanthropic efforts. It encompasses Cash for Kids, a nonprofit charity with a mission to motivate, educate, and elevate kids through fitness, nutrition, and athletics, and Cash Building Blocks, an urban development company dedicated to building affordable housing. She received the WNBA Community Assist Award twice for her work mentoring children and empowering young women through sport. She received an honorary doctorate in public service from Washington and Jefferson College for her outstanding work in the community. In 2016, Cash teamed up with Brawny for the hashtag Strength Has No Gender social media campaign promoting gender equity in athletics. She was a part of the Sports Envoy for the U.S. State Department during the London Olympics, focused on engaging youth in basketball to teach teamwork and respect, and she currently serves as a junior NBA ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, Swin Cash. Our last honoree had an impressive 14-year NBA career playing for the Magic, Suns, Knicks, and Miami Heat, during which he was a 4-time All-Star and a 2-time All-NBA first-team selection. A homegrown star who played for, as we knew it then, Memphis State University. He was a consensus first All-American for the Tigers. Off the court, he has made a significant impact through his involvement with youth sports in Memphis. He first became involved in 2011 as an assistant coach alongside his friend Desmond Merriweather, and eventually became head coach at his old alma mater, Leicester Middle School. His teams won 3 consecutive city and state titles in his first 3 years as coach, and 2 more as East High's head coach. By 2012, he had started Team Penny, now one of the most successful youth basketball programs, with a mission to encourage youth to find success on the court, but also off the court academically. The program aims to give youth a chance to hone their basketball skills while also preparing for college. His community involvement extends beyond Team Penny to his gym, Penny's Fast Break Courts, giving Memphis youth a safe establishment to play sports and learn life skills through mentorship. Welcome our hometown hero, Anthony Penny Hardaway. Ladies and gentlemen, let me add my congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those bios, you thought they were long. They were a lot longer until we edited them down a little bit. But you all have been exceptional representatives, and we're thrilled to have you here today. As we began our conversation, I was reminded of a quote that Dr. King once said during one of his great speeches. He said, "The ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort and convenience, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy." I think it's fair to say where we are now in 2018, there are challenges and there are controversies. So as a background for our conversation today, I'd like each of you to tell me a little bit about when you became aware of the legacy of Dr. King and what most impacted you about his teaching, about the way that he conducted himself. And James, I'll start with you.
Well, I believe I was about 7 years old in 1968. Too young to understand exactly what the civil rights movement was all about. But I understood what my, parents were going through, and I used to listen to some of the kitchen conversations that were going on in my house. I had two older brothers who had integrated from an all-black school to white school and integration. But Dr. King was really the first message as a youngster. I remember in middle school, it was the first report I'd ever written. The teacher said, pick a topic. And so I wrote about Dr. King. And, I knew what his message was as a youngster. It was about equality, justice, compassion, and hope, and, living conditions. So he just wanted it to be fair for everybody. So at a very young age, I understood what fair meant and opportunities for everyone, and no one should be denied certain things. So, at 8, 9 years old, that was the gist that I got from Martin Luther King, and then it grew from there.
Sam?
It was at a time, like, as James said, I'm close in his age, but it was more precedented with my grandmother. Our grands aren't here anymore, and she pretty much was the one that kind of made me think about a lot of things, talk to me. And I couldn't understand why at that time she was talking to me so much about, be back at home before dark, because, every time a kid goes out from home, that's the first thing they worry about. And when you're not home at dark or after dark, they tend to get worried. Now I understand why she was always telling me to be home before dark, because of all the things that she had learned and all the things that were going on prior to me, becoming, older. There was a lot of things going on in the civil rights and still actions of racism going on in the neighborhoods of New York and Brooklyn. So, she taught me a great deal on how to, be conscious of your surroundings, because you had to be in New York. So, but I learned about his legacy as time went on and the things that were going on, and some of the things that she mentioned I saw yesterday, but not to that point until I saw the stories and the connections of all the things that went on for Black Americans back then. So it was at a young age when she was probably instilled me and instilled the things about what Martin Luther King was all about.
Swin?
A little like Sam, I think it came from my grandmother. I think through growing up for me, it was about doing reports on Dr. King, and the messaging was always there, but it was kind of that sugar-coated messaging where it was all the right words that you needed to say about equality and inclusion and learning all these different things, but nothing was like the hard truth. My grandma was that. Like, my mom was the mom that wanted to tell me, you need to learn about Dr. King, but my grandma was the one telling me the stories about the beatings, about segregation, about all those things, and why the civil rights movement was what it was at the time. And I think as I got older, then I started to want to seek more of truth for myself. I wanted to visit museums. I wanted to learn a little bit more. And it wasn't like we were being taught the complete truth, I felt like, in school. And so I think just from my grandma and her background, that's where I really kind of got my foundation.
Penny?
Yeah, just like Sam and Swin said, it came from my grandmother. Probably when I was like 8 years old. It was God first, and then it was Dr. King in my household. That's just how it was. And it was all about equality. just treating others with respect and just having the equality and everybody equal. And, she was the first person that she instilled that in me and just talked to me about it all the time, being an only child, not having my mom there, not having my dad there. And for her raising me, that's how important it was to know his mission and what he had to do for this country, and for me to pay close attention to it.
Obviously, we have come a long way. There is still more work to do. To open the floor up, your thoughts about what are the biggest challenges in civil rights right now? What most needs to be addressed? What needs to be advocated?
I think that it's too much, it's not enough us. It's more individualized kind of to me, because you got so many people that are saying what they will do and what they won't do, but we can't get the whole. And how do I want to put this? It's just, if everybody came together and worked together like we would really want them to, the problems could be fixed easier. But it seems like I don't want it. If that's not me, if it's not happening to me directly, then I'm not going to be involved with it. It's the type of attitude that I see. And if we cared as much for our neighbor or for our friends or for someone else, or had compassion for another person, then we would come together and say, hey, just like Dr. King, we'll do it for that person. It doesn't have to hit home for us to react. And I think that if we did more of that, then things could get better.
I think it should be a requirement for every U.S. citizen to come and see this museum, first of all.
Yeah.
Because I had read a lot about Black history, studied it, and I ever since Frederick Douglass all the way up to Martin Luther King, I was aware of it, but I didn't feel it until I was in the museum. And you see how men and women came here from Africa and how they were enslaved and things like that. But to answer your question, I think the number one thing that's needed now, because I think we all are aware of the history, it needs to be a real authentic conversations that take place right now. I think that's the one thing that's missing. And I think Black people and white people need to get together, and Black people need to get together with Black people, and you need to have a conversation about race and progress, because progress is never permanent. It's always uncomfortable and it's something ongoing. And I think we've come a long way, but I think with a lot of divisiveness and a lot of people have a tendency to go back to what's comfortable for them. When there are no jobs and you're listening to certain networks on the news and you get all this negative stuff in your head. So I think the one thing that's needed most of all is just real, honest, authentic conversation. And I think that's what would help a lot.
And probably also a willingness to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel, and this is my personal opinion, is that nobody wants to be uncomfortable anymore. Nobody wants to talk about the uncomfortable things. Do we need to be more open about talking about what is uncomfortable?
I think you do. I think one of the biggest issues is it's hard for individuals to look in the mirror. It's hard to have a conversation and someone to bring up racism and they give you an example, and in your mind you may think, oh, I said that, or oh, I was thinking, I thought, am I racist? And then you want to run back to the corner and you don't want to necessarily address it. And I think until we start having, like James said, those authentic conversations, we're not going to progress in the way that we should progress. We're living in a time right now, and I'll give a quick example. I have a 5-month-old son. And as we go through the airport, doesn't matter, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Everybody's like, oh, your son is so cute. They look at him as such a baby, and they're like, he's so cute, he's so cute. Each and every person that's walked past us has said it, right? My son at some point, 15 years from now, is gonna grow up. And that same little boy, his dad's 6'6", I'm 6'1", is gonna be a tall African-American boy. And some people aren't gonna view him as this cute little innocent boy. They're gonna look at my child and they're gonna have a different opinion of him, not because they don't know, not because they know him, but just because the color of his skin or how he may look or how big he may be, it may be intimidating. Until we understand that's the times that we live in and we have to figure out how to change it, we're not going to be able to move the needle. And I think those are the authentic conversations that we need to have, because some parents like myself are going to have tough conversations with my son that I know that someone from another race will not have to have with their son, about how to stay safe, about how to be in the streets, as your grandma used to say, Sam, when to come in when the lights are off. And I think as a society, if we can come together and say, look, we have to address this head on, we can get it done. And it's not about pointing fingers, it's about how do we bring everybody in together and change the mindset for everyone.
And we've seen various professional athletes try to advance the conversation. Then we've had some people say, stick to sports. But yet you have such a visible bully pulpit, for lack of a better phrase, to actually affect change. What is it about being a professional athlete or a former professional athlete that gives you added credibility to go ahead and advance the conversation?
Well, it's not that I'm, expert, but because you were a professional player and somewhat, you had a platform to speak. Now you're a role model. You represent it. You don't represent yourself. You represent the NBA. Those letters on your chest. So you have a platform to speak to young men, young women, and in a way to conduct themselves. Because the odds against you are already slim for doing anything, for anybody accepting you, especially if you're black, a black kid. They already have a stereotype on you already. So the thing is that, as mentors and as being a young man before, you try to instill some positives, insights on what to do. Because normally the kids I talk to are some are young black entrepreneurs who are eager and ready to achieve. And then there are others who are in the inner cities who have a one-parent home, and there's no direction for a young man to follow. So you give him the best advice as you can and try to exceed the stereotype that is labeled on him already. And so when that happens, you see this man grow up, he accepted to college, or he grows into a mechanical engineer, or he does something that you least expect he does. And so we try to instill, or I try to instill all the positive things that he can actually do and see himself, set goals, and do the things that no one thinks he can. Like Coach Smith came to my house, and I was probably at the time thinking about going to North Carolina, and he was saying that, and he knows everything about me already. He knows my sister didn't go to school or college, and he was saying to me, well, you can be a young man that graduated, get a degree. You'd be the first one in your family to get a degree. So that was a goal for me. And at the same time, he said you can play ball at the same time while you go to school. So that was the thing for me. And so when you have that advice coming from someone else as a mentor, you try to do the same thing and try to, persuade or implement some of the things that Dean Smith and others that gave me a platform to say the things to some youngsters out here.
And I also think, let's just be honest for a second here. I'll use Mike Conley, for example. If Mike is wearing an arm sleeve and he's getting about 30 a night, a kid's gonna go to their parent and they're like, Mike is my favorite player. Like, I need that arm sleeve, Mom. Yeah. Like, I need that arm sleeve because I have to play like Mike, right? The reality of it is NBA, WNBA players, they drive the conversation in a way sometimes that parents cannot. We are given a platform, and I give a lot of credit to the NBA, the NBPA, for coming together and having great leadership in this space and saying, look, our players want to have conversations about diversity, about equality, about inclusion, all these things, and they give them the platform to be able to communicate to the fans, to the kids, that it's not all just about sports. We love to play this game, but at the same time, we're human. The reality is, and I think LeBron said it best, it doesn't matter how much money he has, he's driving in that Mercedes in a neighborhood down the street and they pull him over. They don't care if you're LeBron James or whoever else, all right? You are still looking at a 6'8" African-American man that somebody may say, I'm intimidated by. So our players can have this conversation because money doesn't change where you come from. It doesn't change, it may change your environment, it might buy you a bigger house, bigger car, but it does not change who you are. And so I think that's why there's credibility there from the beginning.
I also think we have, as athletes, we have a unique opportunity because you're in high school, you're pretty much still like everybody else, you know. But when you get a scholarship, it's almost like you expedite into something where you, like, I don't know if I've ever gotten to go to the University of North Carolina. I probably would have had to go to a small HSBC like my brothers did. But you get exposure a little quicker than most of my friends. So you have the opportunity to first confront people that aren't like you and you have to live with them and now you're in class with them. And then you find out that, hey, there's cool people in this world. There's bad people in all races. But I think as an athlete, you get exposed a little bit and you overcome some things a little bit quicker because of the scholarship and the travel and the people that you get to meet, the alumni. And so you're able to have a different conversation as opposed to the one that you had before you came to college, whereas you might have been a little bit, had anxiety, you might have had a little bit of anger inside, a little bit of hate. But I think that's one thing that it provides us to do, is to be amongst exposure a little quicker, and you get a chance to learn a little bit about race relations and people when you're in that atmosphere.
Well, you've talked about opportunity. Penny and Swin, I know you're very involved in mentoring. Grizzlies Charitable Foundation is very much involved in mentoring. One of the things that Dr. King was adamant about when he was speaking of equality was not merely equality between the races, but equality of opportunity, specifically educational and economic opportunity. Tell us a little bit about what you have done to address that in your local communities.
Well, I mean, going back, you can only go from experience, from where we came from, and learning all the things that I had to do in the league to be able to bring that knowledge back to the community and tell these kids that are trying to dream through me that you can do anything that you want to do. You have to be smart, and then start talking to them like they're in that situation. When you get there, start putting positivity in their ear, like when you get there, not that you can't make it, you can make it. And when you do get there, these are the things that you have to do. So, the kids are, they're hungry for it. They really want it. And they just need people to, like myself and like this panel, to come back and really just instill that in them when we're done. I think that's so important. And I felt like it was important for me to come back to Memphis for that reason, because every community that you came from, you were that kid first. And, even though we didn't get the boost that we're giving to the kids, that you want to show them that when you get your opportunity to return the same thing or do the same thing in return. And just preaching all the time, coaching high school, that, education is first. You're not going to be able to do anything without education. Being a nice person, respecting other people, and just living your life the right way. And I just feel like your attitude has to be in the right place as well, because of the saying of your attitude determines your altitude. And I really believe that. And just instilling all of that, and the kids are really, they're taking to it, and then they're learning.
Swin?
I think for me, and I love the fact that Penny said, dream through you, because so many kids that we're around, and especially when you go back to your own neighborhood, they're always like, I want to be like you. I want to get to the league. And I always say, be better than me, be the best you. And the way that they're able to do that is through education. I feel like that is somewhat of an equalizer for especially minority kids in the society we're in today. And I think mentorship for me is not just teaching them how to dribble the basketball, but how to use the basketball. And I'll give this example. My mom used to say, and we used to have these conversations that, the basketball's in this hand and books are in this hand. At some point, what's going to happen with the ball? You're going to retire. The air's going to come out of the ball. You're not going to have that anymore. We all retire at some point. But the books, all the knowledge you've gained over the years, you can use that throughout the rest of your life. It doesn't matter whether it's in business, whether it's in school. So she always put an emphasis on making sure I was the best that I could be in both. And that's what I try to teach the kids. Listen, I only went to college. My mom told me at a young age, I can't pay for you to go to college. There's no way I can pay for you to go to college. I knew that if I used basketball, if I worked really hard in the gym, if I worked in my classes, that I could go to college. And then I didn't only want to go to college, I wanted to play after that, but I also wanted to continue my education somehow. And that's what it really just comes down to, is first of all, being the example, but then for us, going back to your hometown, those kids see us on television, they see us traveling the world or with NBA cares, they see these pictures, and then to come back to your neighborhood, that's just like, for some of them, it's unbelievable. They just want to hear a story, and a lot of times they just want a hug. They want to know that you're real. I can reach out, I can touch you, I can be you one day, I can go anywhere. And that's how I look at mentorship.
Penny, sometimes is it hard with young people that think they can be the next Penny Hardaway, Mike Conley, whatever? Is it hard sometimes to have that conversation with them to say, basketball is great, but then someday the air's going to go out of the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Swin said, you have to be the best you. You know, you can dream through me, but you have to be the best you. God gave me my own talent. You know, so when people say, I want to be the next Penny Hardaway, well, you can't be me, you can be the best you. You know, God gave you a talent, tap into all the abilities that he gave you, work your butt off, and then things can happen for you. So I think that's what I try to tell the kids. You know, it's very tough. So you have to have the education to fall back on, because you're going to have the books way longer than you're going to have the ball.
Yeah, I also think it's critical for us to convey the message to young people, because unfortunately, when I was growing up, you ask them what they wanted to do, they say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an accountant. And then every now and then you might have an athlete that get a scholarship. But I think it's critical for us to tell them that there are a lot of Michael Jordans out there. There are a lot of Kobe Bryants, and there's a lot of Swins and Pennies, but they never made it. Because there's only about 400 slots in the NBA. So I always ask kids, how many of you want to play in the NBA? And they're like, but there's millions and millions of people fighting for that spot. So I would ask them, you think it's okay to be LeBron James' accountant? Or is it okay to be Kobe's lawyer? And not only that, the longest you can play in the NBA, I mean, these guys played 16, 15, Kobe played 20, but you could be an accountant for 60, 70 years, and you can have a bunch of Kobe clients and LeBron. So there's only 400 spots, and I know there's some players that are better than us that didn't make it for whatever reason. So I think it's important that we tell them that message, the ones that didn't make it. And even if you do make it, if you can't read your contract, if you don't understand what taxes are about or accounting, it's just a whole nother problem. So I think it's critical for us to convey that message and give them other outlets, because there's not that many slots in the NBA. There's only a few, and there's a lot of great players trying to get them.
Jay, I just want to say this real quick. So it's so funny you said that, because I had a meeting at the NBA office, and I took my son, he was about 2 months old, and I came in and I was saying, well, son, this is your first meeting at the NBA office. Not here to talk to you about being an athlete. I want you to figure out how to get Adam Silver's job.
That's right.
Exactly.
I want you to figure out how to run things. Then, you know, if you got a little bit of talent or whatever, you could play, that's fine. Yeah. But you got to figure out how to run things. And give credit to the NBA, too. There's a lot of internship programs and stuff like that. If you want to stay around sports, like, teach our kids, like he said, there's other ways and other jobs to also be involved. It's not always just the athlete part of it.
Yeah, I realized from a young age I was never going to play in the NBA. Broadcasting is an option, trust me. There are so many conversations that are going on right now like this. The biggest challenge is, how do we take this conversation that we're having here, that people who visit the National Civil Rights Museum have, and take that to the broader society so that we can have more effective change. Talking is great, the conversation is wonderful, but how can we advance the ball up the floor? How do we do that?
I was talking to my pastor last week, and I said, you know what, Pastor, you know what we could do? We can go and get the other pastors around the community, and we can go in every neighborhood and grab all the kids. It doesn't have to be at one time. And we can get them in a room like this or bigger, auditorium, and then just talk to them, just hear them out, hear what they have to say, because they have things to say as well. And they just want to be heard. And then you mentor them, you talk to them, and then figure it out. And that's all the kid wants. So if we could do that in every community where the leaders can get together and not have egos, because sometimes it doesn't happen because of egos. And we just take ourselves out of it and make it be more about the kids. And we can get everybody together and then just start talking to the kids. And I guarantee you, I feel like things would change at that point.
Coach Pop was asked a couple days ago if Dr. King were still with us here in 2018, what do you think he would be saying or doing right now?
Well,
Pissed.
go ahead, Sam.
Well, no. I mean, I just think if Dr. King was alive today and with the things going on, I'm sure he'd still be dissatisfied in many ways, because even though it progressed a little bit, he was a progressor, a civil rights champion in that sense. But I think with today's the man in office, I don't know if he's president or not, but the man in office, I say that much, that is going about the wrong way in the eyes of Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't know if he knows his legacy. I don't know if he knows anything about the history of Black history. I don't know that. But all I'm saying is that whatever his message was, the message has to be so visible, because it only comes around, his birthday comes around in January. Black history comes around in 1 month, and so you got so much to pronounce. So when February leaves, it's done, it's quiet again. So, but you have so much other things going on and challenges to face from month to month, day to day, that the message is lost and muddled to a point until you come to DC's Historic Museum and this one here, that sometimes people don't hear it enough. And like Penny said and everyone else said, you got to get people together, but you have to have visibility almost consciously all the time, because my daughter goes to a school, they don't teach Black history. So I asked her about Rosa Parks, and she knew about the little things about it, but she don't know why she sat down or why she didn't get up and things of that nature. So that made me mad. So there's things we have to educate people. You have to educate a lot of people, especially our young, so that they can grow up and have that same mentality that we are trying to do now. Because as my grandmother did for me, I'm trying to instill that today. And so when I'm not around, they got to do the same thing in that same sense.
Yeah, I think if Martin Luther King had lived, I mean, his message would have continued. And I think, I don't know if I heard this yesterday or somewhere, but I think with Twitter and social media and Martin Luther King on all that, and his message spreading out all over the world in different countries, I think it would have been extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. When you think about, when change was trying to happen, you think of President Kennedy, you think of his brother, and you think of Martin Luther King. But I think if he were living today, I think over the last, 50 years, he would have continued to make progress. And it would be a little bit better now. But I think, if it were like it was today, I think his message would still stand strong.
I think he would be disappointed, but I think he would be encouraged at the same time. And I say that because over the last year or so, we've seen young people, we've seen people who are just tired of being sick and tired, that have taken to the streets, that have taken to social media, that have started small groups wanting to talk to people in their neighborhoods. And I think that alone would have encouraged him, because people are mobilizing. And I think if you see something, you have to say something is important now more than ever. And that's not just on a political scene, but it's also with your family, with your friends, having those conversations over dinner where people are saying stuff that is close to you that may be racist, that you now have to say something and not be an enabler, but help them. So if you can educate people within your small circle, imagine what we all can do, everybody in here throughout Memphis, throughout New York, LA, wherever you want to be. Just think what we can do if you just start within your small circle. And I think he would be encouraged by that. But I do think he would be disappointed in a time such as this, that even as we celebrate today and honor him today, that there are some people who still don't understand or comprehend the message that he was trying to convey to all of us. And they're in powerful positions and institutions that we need that are going to be able to put out legislations and things that change our lives. So I say, at the end of the day, he would say, your vote matters.
Penny, if they convened a civil rights commission, as we had in the 60s, and they put you on it, said, Penny, how are we going to address this? From a national perspective, what would you tell the government? What would you tell the president if you were asked?
Well, I mean, just like Dr. King, I think Mike Conley said it last night. Most of the protesters that protested in the past were ages 18 to 24. So I would say reach the youth. Find a way to reach the youth, because that's the movement. That's the future. So I think if you could reach the youth, because now coaching and understanding the youth, they're not really involved. From what I can see, they don't understand what's really happening on a day-to-day basis. They hear things, and then it just goes away because they have so many distractions with social media. And the social media isn't for awareness of what's going on now only. It's everything. So I would say reach the youth. And if you can start with the youth and really get to them, I think we can make some changes.
We're coming toward the end of the symposium. I'm going to give each of you your final takeaway from this entire experience: National Civil Rights Museum, the symposium, the conversations you've had, the experiences you've had the last 48 hours or so. James?
Well, the first two things that come to mind. Is my mic on?
Nope.
I'm not hearing it.
I lost my mic. Hello? Hello? You know what happened? Sam, you want to go? Okay. Well, my experience from this whole thing, first of all, I'm very humbled to be a recipient for the award. And at the second, when I was in the museum, a lot of emotions, overcame me, madness, sadness, hurtfulness, a little rage, but I had to be quiet and listen to the narrator. But at the same time, I think it's something, I needed to see to regenerate myself to the point where, for all the things that you read off, all those things are different forums, different platforms. And that's because of the NBA. NBA Cares, their programs, their initiatives, things that I've done. And I didn't do them all correctly, or it wasn't perfect, but at the same time, I learned a great deal yesterday. And through all the forums that I've been through, it brought to light and brought together why I do what I do. Because Martin Luther King was an inspirator. He was a guy who just believed in his faith that led him to fight against injustice. And those things, I'm not nowhere near him, but at the same time, I model and idolize his efforts and all the people that gave me a chance to do what I do. So it's important for me to continue to what I do, because I have daughters, and they need it. They need to see that, and I needed to see that myself, just to be aware and be conscious of what's going on and how to react and behave in a way that it's viable for me without getting harmed and stuff.
Swin, Penny, you got about 30 seconds each. Sam was so eloquent.
I would just say briefly is that we are a country of immigrants. We have a nasty history in the U.S., but it doesn't mean it has to be our future. So progress and moving forward, having conversations, and making sure that we care about each and every person in our neighborhood, around the country. Doesn't matter what race you are, with creed, none of those things matter. Just do it with love, as Dr. King would say, and take to the streets, use your vote, and make sure that we can make this country better for each and every one of us.
All right. Penny, you're gonna decline. We're running up against the clock here at the very end. And one thing that Dr. King said I want to share with you: history will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. I think we can see here this afternoon, we have plenty of good people. If this weekend means anything, to me, that's what it means. I'd like to thank you all, congratulate you all on your tremendous work and your affiliation with the NBA and the WNBA. On behalf of the Grizzlies, the City of Memphis, Shelby County, the National Civil Rights Museum, the Hyde Family Foundations, Pitt and Barber, thank you so much. We'd like to thank all of you for being here. We'd like to thank our audience on Fox Sports Southeast for watching the Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium. It has always been a wonderful conversation. And a reminder that at 4:30 this afternoon, it's the Grizzlies and the Lakers. Be in your seats early, special and national anthem performance. We'll also have the presentation of the award to our honorees. And so be in your seats. We'll see you at 4:30. Thank you so much for watching.